What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining me on D's Analysis. We're going to be checking out Coinbase today, and later in the video we're going to do a comparison between Coinbase, MSTR, and Bitcoin and see which one has served best in certain time periods. They all kind of line up the same in terms of their time periods of when they started to ramp up and when they had drawdowns. So the comparisons are pretty fair. So we'll kind of just look and see which one ends up being the best out of the three. Not to say that this is going to be the same way forever, but it can give you a little bit of insight for the future, factoring in like drawdowns and all that kind of stuff. So here on Coinbase, we were talking about this stuff for a while. On the old Coinbase videos, we were talking about this piece right here touching the top of this channel right when we were over here somewhere. As we were making our touch over here and so on, we were talking about making our move to the top of this channel, and that's exactly what we did. You can look at the old Coinbase videos. You have to go back a pretty far time back, but you can see that we were speaking of this happening, and we did say once we were to come into contact with this that we still could see higher prices, but the more than likely scenario would be a drawdown, and at the minimum, some kind of sideways chop and major pullback after a significant move up. So, not to say that the move is over, but we were saying after a mega move like this from this bottom over here, running up 200% in such a short period, we were saying there's going to be some kind of sideways chop at the least, more than likely some kind of larger pullback. But at the same time, like I said, I'm always open to multiple ideas. So I also said there is a chance the momentum, if Bitcoin were to continue rallying, then we could have broken out of the structure and continued up higher. But this was a more than likely scenario, and we ended up getting it. And of course, it was in confluence with this upward sloping trend line. So nothing too surprising there. And we did come back for a retest of this key structure that we had drawn out here. This structure right here highlighted with the white outline. You can see we came right back for multiple touches and we found a floor right there. And if we were to pull a fib off of this level, that lines right up with the 0.5 to the 618. Of course, the golden zone, that's where we like to get our retracements to. It's a magnet for price. And it's happening again. It looks like we found a floor, at least temporarily. Of course, like I said, I'm always open to both ideas. So at the same time, you could argue that we are just forming some kind of bear flag with this piece here and measuring it out off of this move and getting that second leg for a continuation down, which would mean that we fall underneath the 0.5 to 618. So this structure here would be acting as a ceiling instead of a floor, how it is also in confluence with this highlighted one in white. And that means we'd fall back inside of this main range that we've been in all the way back from 2024. So that's what we could be looking at if this turns out to be the bear flag and not the bullish scenario. So keep an eye out for that. We did break our very, very bullish structure that we had. Of course, not too surprising. It was a very steep trend line that we've had. The steeper the trend line, the more likely it is to break, and the deeper the retest is more than likely to be. So this isn't anything too surprising. When we take a look at the weekly SMAs, we are right at the 20-week SMA, which is nice. We did close slightly underneath it, so we'd be looking to close back above it to use it as support. But right now it is going to be a ceiling and indicating a potential move down to this structure over here, potentially to the 50-week. I don't know if we'll make it that far. We do have these two structures, like I said, the golden zone and this key level of support there holding price up. On the daily, we are underneath the 50 and the 20. The 20 is now acting as a closer ceiling than the 50. I would expect a major bounce off the 200, which is another thing that's lining up with these structures with the golden zone and this major structure here. So that's a lot of firepower to support price to the upside, but we can always fall through. So be aware of that. the weekly EMA, the 8 EMA. This is our short-term rallies. You can see we were holding it pretty well when we had that nice rally, and now that we had a little bit of bearishness, we've held underneath it, and we're kind of status quo on that. On the daily, it's kind of sideways chop, but now it's starting to create a little bit of bearish momentum. Nothing too drastic just yet, but we'll keep an eye out for this because this can really, like I said before, start to call these small rallies that you see in price. On the weekly RSI, we had a nice trend established. Like I said, we had a nice trend, broke, very, very steep fall off, and now we're kind of trending sideways. It is starting to create a head and shoulders. As you can see, a left shoulder here, you have your head and your right shoulder being formed. So that could indicate more downside, and we are underneath our yellow moving average. So ideally, we want to see a nice little turnaround, get back above this yellow moving average, and start to move towards overbought territory. And on the daily, kind of the same concept. We broke this less steep trend line that we have established. This one, let me see exactly where we're at. We actually still might be holding it. Yeah, we're actually, I could say that we're still kind of holding that. We might break through it. We'll see if the momentum continues. But it looks like we still are holding it. We'll see if we can break above that yellow moving average. And we're looking for the same thing to bring some kind of strength after some major weakness that we've been seeing for Coinbase lately. On the weekly MACD, we're still in bullish territory, but it has had a major drawdown. Not surprising after the major fall off that we've had. About a 35% move to the downside. We are kind of just trending sideways. Nothing really too drastic happening at the moment. And on the daily, we're fighting between bearish and bullish right here. We did flip back red, but nothing too drastic just yet. After having a short little green hill here, nothing too major. Like you can see here, it's really nothing. Really just sideways action. And we're kind of just waiting for price to make a decision. Price really is just boxed up right now between these two structures. If you were to, draw it out, you can kind of see you have this area right there, and you have this bottom area down here, which we've already talked about. Let me turn up the brightness a little bit so you can see it better. So those two little areas, that's pretty much where price is boxed up, and we're waiting for what we're always looking for, which is some kind of breakout to either the upside, retest, and start to continue to this next structure that we've already touched, or to chop, break underneath, use that as a ceiling, and continue on down. So that's kind of what we're looking for here for Coinbase. And then we're going to do a little bit of a comparison between MSTR, Bitcoin, and Coinbase. It's just going to be a quick little run through so we can talk about it and see what you guys are thinking, and we'll just run through the numbers. So if you take it from September 2024 to November 2024, this run up right here, we ran up around 140%, roughly, for Coinbase. In that same time period on MSTR, from September to November, we ran up around 370%. So MSTR, of course, when it catches the momentum and everything's going great, it's hard to beat that. It's one of the best things out there when it has that momentum to the upside and is flowing pretty nice. In that same period, September 2024, Bitcoin did roughly 90% there in that same period. So you can kind of see Bitcoin did 90, Coinbase did roughly 1.5 times, and then MSTR did about 3 to 4x roughly. When you get the momentum, MSTR is unstoppable. When you have that blended piece together, it could be Bitcoin or Coinbase that ends up being, the better option, just based off of the numbers. And now when we compare September 2024 till today's price, Coinbase went up 115%. So September 2024, that same bottom that we were already talking about till now, 115%. MSTR in that same period is up 170% for easy numbers, and Bitcoin is up about 108% in that same period. So for a recap for that one, September 2024, Bitcoin's up 108%, Coinbase is up 115%, MSTR is up 172%. Even after the horrible performance that MSTR has put together, it's still up 172%, which is ridiculous. But now this is where the more recent price action, which we're going to talk about now, will go year to date. And with the year to date, starting with Coinbase, you can see that we were already sitting at 255, and Coinbase ended up running up about 22%, 23% year to date from January to now. Roughly 22%. In that same period, MSTR is up 3%. So Coinbase is up 22%, MSTR is up 3%. And then Bitcoin is up about 18%, roughly 17, 18%. So you can kind of see that when you start factoring in the drawdowns, Coinbase and Bitcoin can be the better option. Of course, that's not always the case, but when you compare it right now, that's what it's looking like. And then when we do the last 3 months, we're going to just do July till now. So from the top here, Coinbase is down 29%, or we'll just say 30%. So Coinbase is down 30%, MSTR is down 31, 32%, and Bitcoin is down 11% from its peak till now. So both Coinbase and MSTR are about 30% down from their high peaks, or at least the peak of July. Bitcoin is down about 10% in that same time period. So that's another comparison that you can use to kind of make your decisions when you start factoring in, a crypto winter and crypto's absolutely bleeding out for, a year or a year and a half or 6 months. And it's just something to take into consideration. Maybe you do a blend of the three. Maybe you do just Bitcoin and Coinbase. Maybe you do a blend of Bitcoin and BITX, however you want to do it. There's always different options, but keep your mind open to it and make sure you're looking at the charts and seeing how they compare. That's pretty much the whole video. Make sure you guys drop a like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.